right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to do another COA video. This time it's going to be the top 3 DPS specs for the Venomancer, and I'll throw in an honorable mention a little bit later in the video as well. Venomancer, by no one's surprise, is my favorite class in COA, and right now the damage it does is crazy for a level 50 class. I cannot wait to see what this character looks like with level 60 gear. One really important thing before getting into the video, Dutch did announce that anyone who has COA currently has access to the PTR of COA. This is kind of their new infrastructure for testing stuff in COA. So phases and new things are going to be coming out even faster than they were before. So I don't know when phase 5 or phase 6 is going to be coming out, but it's going to be soon. And when we do, it's going to be raids. We're going to be getting all the level 60 gear, the reputation stuff. It's going to be unreal, man. If you like these videos and things like it, remember to subscribe below, hit the bell button and the like as well while you're down there. We also go live over on Twitch, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every day at twitch.tv/drydeck_TV. I swear to God, that gets harder and harder every time I say it. Anyway, guys, let's dive into this video. All right, we're back here on the Spooder Lady on the Venomancer. We are back in Stranglethorn Vale. We're first going to be going over the build using Might of the Akir, which transforms your Stalker form into the Nerubian Stalker. Essentially, what this means is you take a hit on your nature damage, but instead you transform some things into shadow damage and scaling shadow dot damage instead of nature damage. Currently, I believe this is actually the strongest build, so let's go from top to bottom exactly what we get, okay? So we have Corrupted Fangs, just for a little bit extra damage on the auto attack. Leg Strike. Withering Venom is a must, and we'll go over that just in a minute. We get Nerubian Sting. Then we grab Might of the Akir. So this is the backbone of the build. Changes your Stalker form into Nerubian form. So it says increases all shadow damage you deal, but reduce the nature damage you deal by 20% as well. But also the big one is reduce the cooldown of Nerubian Sting by 60%, okay? Very, very powerful. The other one we grab is Pustulant Spores, because anytime you deal damage, you get a stack and you get attack speed. So it explodes and does a bunch of damage. Even though this does nature damage, it still does quite a bit of damage for this build. And lastly, we take Widow's Kiss here at the top of the tree. So this is what the Nerubian looks like. Very, very cool. Very imposing of a form, I gotta say. Very, very cool. I actually really like this form. Very, very fun. What I'm gonna do is really quickly go over kind of the crash course of the build and the rotation we're gonna be using so you guys understand what we're doing, okay? So essentially, we're gonna be using Rage, which we get by either using Leg Strike or just auto attacking, which we will be here in just a minute. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make sure Venom is up, and you're going to cast on 2 Creeping Poisons, okay? Now, you don't have to do this, but you can apply Wizard Oil to your weapons. It does help a lot on spell damage, but for these videos, I'm not going to be using any cooldowns or any kind of Wizard Oil, just so you guys can kind of get an idea of what the build actually does, okay? So the build operates very similar. So what you're going to be doing, your rotation is essentially... you're going to try to keep Widow's Kiss on cooldown, so you're going to use it as much as you can, okay? So this does damage, shadow damage increases your attack speed, but if they're affected by lethal toxin, it consumes it to afflict them with Leech Poison, which lasts 15 seconds. And you apply that lethal poison by using Venom Fang, the very first spam ability. The other one you have to make sure you're doing is because you have to use Venom Fang into Withering Venom, which applies lethal toxin, or consumes lethal toxin to apply Withering Venom, which we then consume with Nerubian Sting. So there's a lot of putting buffs on, taking buffs off for additional damage, but this is essentially what it looks like, okay? All right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna start here with the Expert's Training Dummy, and usually I start out with a Leg Strike into a Venom Spit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start our rotation here. So we're gonna use Lethal Toxin, make sure that's up, boom, hit him with that. And now we have Withering Venom up, and we're gonna do that. Okay, so my tip is to make sure you always get the stack up. As soon as you get to use Nerubian, you're gonna wanna use Withering Venom right after. That way you're gonna make sure you have the debuff on the target, so you're always going to be consuming it. You're never going to be running out of Nerubian poison. So essentially what the rotation boils down to is you're going to be using the Venom Fang to proc other different things, the Withering Venom and the Widow's Kiss right there that you just saw. So the Widow's Kiss lasts about 15 seconds, so eventually I think what's going to happen is once we get a little bit more gear, haste values might increase, we get better gear, all that stuff. Essentially what the build is, you're trying to keep this on the target at all times, and the way you do that is because when you're in this form, anytime you deal shadow damage, you have a chance of reducing the cooldown of your Widow's Kiss, and that's kind of like your main big payoff. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to deal as much shadow damage per second as we can to try to get as many procs as we can to keep the Widow's Kiss on as low of a cooldown as we can. All right, so we're getting about 1.5k DPS without Wizard Oil and without cooldowns. With all that going, I've been able to get this character without just my self buffs, without any other buffs. I've been able to get it to nearly 2k, so extremely powerful for single target. All right, so this next build is more simple. It's going back to the roots, going back to nature damage and using actual spider form again. So let's go over the talents as they are, okay? Let me move this out of the way a little bit. All right, so pretty similar in the talent tree as the last build. So we still have Corrupted Fangs, Leg Strike, and we still have Withering Venom. The ones we changed here are instead of having Widow's Kiss, we now have Spider Feast, and instead of Nerubian Sting, we now have Face Melter and Organo Cannon. Very, very silly ability. We also dropped Might of the Akir. So what we're going to be doing is, again, we're not going to be using Wizard Oils or my prayer beads, but there are some things for this build that you need to do, okay? So you do need to have Organo Cannon, you need to have Tunnel Below, because you're going to start the fight off by tunneling below and then bursting out. The reason is because with Organo Cannon, what it does is it allows your Venom Spit to deal 300% increased damage and have no cooldown for the duration. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to macro in, and this is the macro you're going to use, is you're going to do /start attack /cast Venom Fang /cast Venom Spit. This is a very, very potent opener, and if you want to snapshot like a spell power trinket with it, it does a lot of damage early on, okay? So what it looks like is what you're going to do is you're going to burst out and you're going to be spamming that macro, and you're going to be trying to get as many Venom Spits as you can. Once Organo Cannon kind of runs out of duration, you then look to apply your other dots as well, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to come over here, and you have to make sure you're behind the target, specifically for Spider Feast. You have to be behind the target or you won't get the stacks of quickness. The reason is because the Face Melter does a bunch of damage, and you can make it have like a 0.2 duration, which is, you know, pretty thematic with Face Melter, right? It's pretty cool. So what we're going to do, so we're going to come here behind the target, we're going to tunnel below, and then we're going to start with Organo Cannon, and then we're going to spam the crap out of that macro, okay? So this is what it looks like. You're going to come up, boom, you're going to hit Leg Strike, you're going to try to get a Venom Tip Poison in there, so you're going to be spamming, maybe get Withering Venom up there as much as you can, okay? And once you see this go on cooldown, then you start applying your other dots, okay? So you're going to use Face Melter. And then essentially what you're going to be doing for the rest of the rotation is you're going to be using Venom Spit when it comes up on cooldown. It'll be automatically macroed in, so you don't have to worry about that. Leg Strike once it comes up, and you're going to be maintaining 15 stacks of Withering Venom. And then you're going to be using the Face Melter when it comes off cooldown, okay? So you get about 1.3, 1.4k DPS. It's not as high as the Shadows form right now as far as raw DPS, but it is a little bit simpler of a rotation. You don't have to worry about us juggling so many buffs and debuffs. All you got to do is just use abilities on cooldown. I do think, though, with better gear and higher snapshotting, I do think that Organo Cannon is going to be insane for when you start fights. So we're maintaining about 1.3k, not too shabby, and it is a fairly simple rotation, not very complicated at all. All right, so we're going to jump into the third spec, and this one is more AoE built, and it's very, very fun. All right, so here we are back on the other build I was talking about, and this is the Silithid REAVER form. Very, very cool looking. This is essentially the other half of Might of the Akir. This transforms your Scorpion form into Silithid REAVER, which reduces all threat generated by 100%, very nice, and increases all shadow and nature damage dealt by 8%. Two things about this build, okay? Your single target isn't the best. You can still do around 750, 800, which is serviceable in the current form of the game. And basically all of these talents outside of Corrupted Fangs, Might of the Akir, and Pustulent Spores are useless, unfortunately. Most of the abilities in the stocking tree is used with spiders, okay? So you can't really use it outside of spider form. But this one is built specifically for AoE, okay? So your rotation essentially is you're going to use Venom Spit to apply your Venom Tip Poison to everything around you. So Venom, the Tail Strike, it eats a portion of the Venom Tip Poison to deal an explosion, and eventually what you're going to be doing is you're going to be just tab targeting and using Tail Strike pretty much on cooldown if you have the Rage. And this really helps if you have like 1 or 2 monsters hitting you. So if your healer can handle it in a dungeon, taunt a monster off on you so you can get a little bit of free rage generation. It's going to help a lot, okay? But regardless, what you're going to do is you're going to come behind the target, just like normal. Always want to be behind the target, right? So your rotation is really, really, really simple. All you're gonna do is you're gonna try to keep Venom Spit or Venom Tip Poison up on a target using Tail Strike and Scorpion Claw wherever you can, okay? And this one's cool. They added in every 6th Scorpion Claw applies your Venom Fang effects. You're probably not gonna be proccing that too often, but it's nice for tanking, irregardless, okay? So your rotation's pretty sick. What you're gonna do is you're gonna apply your poison to everything, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna spam Tail Strike until it runs out, and then you're gonna target the other things around it and continue to spam as long as you have rage and as long as there's Venom Tip Poison up on the target. So this is what it looks like, okay? We start with Venom Tip Poison, okay? So I'm gonna generate a little bit of rage here. Okay, I wanna get a little bit of rage going. So we're gonna wait for my next Venom Tip Poison. Okay, use it, and now you spam, 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 switch targets, spam. Okay, losing some rage, spam. Okay, that one has Venom Tip Poison. Use Venom Tip Poison again, and then you continue to just spam Venom Tip Poison wherever you have it up at. And essentially what this is gonna do is you're gonna tab target until Venom Tip Poison comes off cooldown, and then you're just gonna spam it. Tab target, tab target, tab target, Venom Tip Poison. Do another one. Very, very, very simple AoE rotation, but very effective, okay? Oh, targeted the wrong one, and Venom Tip Poison again. So we got up to 2.1k AoE DPS. Now, is this like the highest AoE DPS in the game? Not by a mile. There's specs specifically, or entire classes built around massive AoE. But if you're in a dungeon and this is kind of your go-to spec, you can swap in and out between this spec for AoE and single target on the Spider Spec. Now, if you're going with the Shadow Spec, it's not going to be as high single target, so what I'd suggest doing is just sticking with this and using it strictly for AoE. All right, we peaked at 2.2k, not bad. But essentially, that's what you're gonna do. Venom Tip Poison, spam Tail Strike, and use the Scorpion Claw to generate rage while you can. Really, really fun. All right, let's talk about the honorable mention DPS spec, okay? So this is kind of the Venom caster build. Not really that powerful, even with really, really good gear. It's not the best, but it does have potential, maybe in like a PvP scenario. The reason is because of this spell right here, so Inoculate. So this ability consumes stacks of fungal growth on the target, dealing 10% increased damage for each stack. So what this is, let's look at the talent tree together, okay? So we grab Miasma, Wilt, Venexus Fang, Blight, Fungal Growth, Nightweb Poison, and then Inoculate. Essentially what this spec is kind of building around Fungal Growth. So what this does, increase your spell haste by 5%, cool. So this deals, anytime you deal shadow or nature damage to an enemy, has a chance to inflict them with a stack of Fungal Growth, increasing all periodic damage that they take by 1%, stacking up to 100 times. Now, this is gonna be really, really good for like support characters in the raids. I'm gonna want one of these in my raid, because if I'm playing a shadow build or like a actual poison build with a spider, having 100% extra dot damage is going to be huge. But essentially what you're doing is you're trying to build this up, and then you're going to use Inoculate for like a huge nuke. I've been able to have this thing crit for over 10k at level 50, which is insane, but it takes an enormous amount of time to stack up, okay? So essentially what you're going to do, there is 2 interactions. So the Fungal Bloom plus Inoculate, and then this Venaxis Fang. So if your target isn't a Miasma, this spell deals increased damage and its cooldown is instantly reset. Can be cast while moving. I don't suggest using it all the time because it's extremely mana efficient, but in a PvP scenario, I can see this being very, very powerful. So this is kind of what it looks like. You use Miasma, and then you can spam the Venexus Fang, right? Okay, so it does a decent amount of damage, but not enough to really warrant the amount of mana. I would imagine maybe in raids with full buffs and everything, you might be able to maintain this, and it does a stacking thing where they take 100% increased damage from the Venexus Fang, okay? So I'm doing 1,000 a shot. Not the worst thing in the world, but not the best either. And that is 1,000 damage, you know, 1,000 DPS, hitting everything with Miasma, right? So not the best. So if we go over here to single target, if we have Miasma up, we can get Venaxis Fang going. Let's go ahead and just reset real quick. Reset all data. So let's get this up to 10 stacks. All right, let's get Miasma down. So So your single target can be about 1,000, just strictly doing this. Not very mana efficient, but not all that fun either, because you're kind of going for the fungal growth, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna kind of speed through this a little bit just so you can see what it looks like once the fungal growth is stacked up. But essentially what you're gonna try to do is you're going to keep Wilt, Miasma, and Blight up as much as possible using Venom Spit, anything to really generate damage. I don't suggest doing Venexus Fang in a solo environment while you're testing just because you run out of mana really, really fast. But essentially what you're doing is you're trying to stack up fungal growth as high as possible. So let's go ahead and just kind of cut forward when I have about 97, 98 stacks. So then you can see what Inoculate can do. And hopefully it actually crits this time. All right, we are about 95, 96 stacks on the fungal growth. So I'm going to try to let maybe all of this run out here. Hold on. Let's see if we can't get Venom Spit. Okay. Let's see if we can't get all of the damage out. All right, dude, here we go. So we're going to try to do Inoculate. You ready? All right, hopefully it crits. Come on, here we go. Boom! Okay, 5K non-crit, not bad. All right, with Wizard Oils and every cooldown pop, I've had it hit about 10K. I think it was like 9998 around there. So it's not the most efficient thing in the world, but I could see how having some sort of giant execute mechanic might be very, very valuable later on in a fight. All right, that's it, guys. That is going to be all for this video. Top 3 plus an honorable mention DPS specs right now on the Venomancer in COA. We're going to be doing some more videos like this, so keep an eye out for that. If you want to keep up to date with the channel, remember to subscribe, like, hit the bell button on this video. Go ahead and head over to twitch.tv/drydeck_TV. Got it that time. Subscribe there to follow the channel. We go live every single day, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're playing a little bit of COA, playing a little bit of PoE, and a little bit of Lord of the Rings Online. Crazy, crazy. Maybe kept some more videos on that as well in the future. Anyway, guys, with that, this video is done. Subscribe below for more content. I will see you in the next one. Peace!